Welcome to Hannity. And breaking tonight moments ago, the trust fund brat that never worked a day in his life in a hoodie, John Fetterman, was forced to answer why he is unwilling to come on this program and defend his radical positions. Here's a slight tease.
Sean Hannity said that he has repeatedly issued an invitation to your campaign to be his guest solo for the 3 hours of his radio show and 1 full hour of his national TV show. He said he's gotten no response from you, which I assume means you're a no. So my question is, sir, as a United States Senator, and I worked for one that would be the late John Hines, you have to do this, debating the opposition thing all the time. And I'm just curious as to what your reasoning is for not doing that.
Well, we got an answer. We'll play Fetterman's full answer coming up tonight. Also tonight, we have just obtained exclusively for this program 2 full hours of body cam footage from the 2020 incident involving Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia and his ex-wife, where she accused him of running her over with his Tesla following a domestic dispute. 2 hours. Now, those on the left who believe, say, believe all women. Are they feigning outrage over Herschel Walker because he allegedly paid for an abortion many years ago? Are they only caring about believing women that accuse Republicans? Is this going to change the race in Georgia? We've got that tape coming up exclusively right here on the show. And also, Arizona Democrat Katie Hobbs is running and hiding literally from tough questions, and she still refuses to debate Kari Lake. We have exclusive footage from Project Veritas showing Hobbs frantically avoiding a reporter. We'll play that. But first, we begin with Joe Biden tonight, who just sat down for one of the coziest, they could have lit a fire and toasted marshmallows interview with fake news' CNN's fake Jake Tapper, who coddled the president with a variety of softball questions, virtually no follow-ups. That's fine. I expect that. Make no mistake. Fake Jake, he's not a journalist. He's a Democratic activist. He is a talk show host. I'm a talk show host. We're members of the press. I'm honest. He's not. It's okay. All he needs to do is be honest with his viewers that he has a political side. He's a Trump-hating liberal Democrat like almost everyone else on fake news CNN and MSDNC. Now, still, despite Tapper's best effort to be gentle with the president, the ever so, compromised president, even politely picking up Joe's cheat sheet at one point, Biden still mangled, at the end to make a total complete fool of himself, mangling one word after another. He said he was so proud of his son, Hunter, the smartest guy he knows. It may be truth to that because he made all this money with no experience. Got to give the devil his due. He said the vast majority of Americans approve of his decisions in office. I beg to differ. The polls do as well. And get this, he claimed that we are definitely not in a recession. He said it. Take a look.
Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now. Every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly.
You see, after 2 straight quarters of negative growth, consecutive quarters of negative growth, we are officially in a recession, not to mention the housing crash, the bear market, spiking interest rates, and to top it all off, inflation still at a 41-year high. Gas prices are now more than double what they were under President Trump, and they're going much higher very quickly. And that brings us to Biden's utter humiliation at the hands of OPEC and Saudi Arabia. Remember, after he went begging and pleading with MBS, the guy he once called the murderer of Jamal Khashoggi, and begged them to please produce more oil, the country that he said was a pariah nation, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Well, they, in conjunction with OPEC, in full alignment with Vladimir Putin and Russia, they decided to do the exact opposite of what Joe wanted, and they produced less. He got on his hands and knees, kissed the ring in the ass of MBS, and it didn't work. Even fist pumped him. Anyway, 2 million barrels a day less, thanks to Joe's diplomacy. Last night, according to Joe Biden, it was never about the oil. This is a lie. Take a look.
Do you think it's time for the U.S. to rethink its relationship with Saudi Arabia?
Yes. And by the way, let's get straight why I went. I didn't go to one about oil. I went about making sure that we made sure that we weren't going to walk away from the Middle East and what was going on.
Okay. He went there for the oil. He went there to beg Saudi Arabia for help in the midterms. We now have a new report, a bombshell report from the Wall Street Journal, that Joe Biden was pleading with OPEC and Saudi Arabia to delay the production decrease of oil for a few months, meaning it's likely that MBS and OPEC told Joe Biden right to his face that he would not only not produce more oil, but he can cut production, and he would cut production dramatically. Quote, Saudi officials dismissed Biden's request, which they viewed as a political gambit by the administration to avoid bad news ahead of the U.S. midterm elections. They were right. They laughed in his face. This is not just humiliating for Joe Biden, and it is humiliating, but he was groveling to the guy that he called a murderer. The murderer literally spit in his face and spit in the face of the entire country, the USA. And despite Biden's efforts to keep this quiet, we now know the truth, and Joe has no long-term solution for spiking gas prices, no plan to tap into our own domestic resources, no new pipeline deals on deck, just a political gambit, and it failed miserably, and we're all paying the price for it. And now he's accusing Saudi Arabia and OPEC of aligning with Putin, which had already happened. How stupid can Joe be? They have been aligning for quite some time, all in an effort. They have been coordinating to drive up energy costs by manipulating the world's supply, knowing that Joe Biden is so stupid and so beholden to the new Green Deal socialist Democrats that he's going to artificially reduce the world's supply, which means they get even richer. They will continue to deny Joe Biden, begging and pleading again and again. Joe will keep begging and humiliating himself and humiliating our country, all because he's too stupid to produce it domestically and become energy independent like Donald Trump did. Unfortunately for the country, Joe Biden does not value logic or truth. He bows at the dark altar of the climate alarmist religious cult. Never forget it. And with each passing day, reality becomes more and more blurred for the president. In fact, today he falsely claimed that his son, Beau, lost his life in Iraq. This is pretty scary. It's like a, where's Jackie moment. Take a look.
Just imagine, I mean it sincerely. I say this as a father of a man who won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, and lost his life in Iraq.
That didn't happen. His son tragically died from cancer shortly after his second term as Delaware's Attorney General. Tonight, it is not clear if Biden is confused, lying, or both. I suspect it is the significant cognitive decline that we chronicle regularly. Either way, it's not a good look from the guy who has checked his watch, remember, over and over again during the dignified transfer of servicemen and women that were killed in Afghanistan because of Joe's awful and deadly withdrawal from Kabul. And frankly, Biden seems pretty classless, pretty self-absorbed, right on cue. Here's Joe talking about himself yet again. Take a look.
I grew up in Claymont, Delaware, and I went to a little school called Holy Rosary Grade School across from the Claymont Fire Hall. And all my buddies, either became a firefighter, a cop, or a priest. I wasn't qualified for any of them, so here I am.
Well, the last part's true. You don't qualify for those jobs, and you're certainly not qualified to be president. Now, given his first 2 years in office, that is painfully obvious for anyone with eyes to see. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.